for brief announcement. Today's meeting was agendized as a joint meeting for the board's Program and Planning, Budget and Finance, and Executive Committees. Due to a lack of quorum for the Budget and Financing Committee, today's meeting will only be a joint meeting for our board's Program and Planning Executive Committee. Linda?
Thank you. And with that, we'll move to call the meeting to order. And I'll do roll call. Mary Baratza? Here. Priya Batra?
Here.
Astrid Hager? Here. Carol Sagala?
Here.
Lisa Whitecrow?
Here.
Deanne Tilton Durfee? Jacqueline McCroskey?
Here.
Luis Bautista?
Here.
And Alejandra Albaran Moses.
Here.
Quorum is present.
We are now calling this meeting to order. Thank you, Ms. Bo. All right, our next, are you talking? Yes. Okay.
Good afternoon, everyone. It is really, really lovely to see.
Carla, I'm so sorry to interrupt. If really quickly we can go back to item 2 for AB 2449 request. I did want to confirm that we have one commissioner joining under AB 2449 under Just Cause. Commissioner Whitecrow, could you confirm that you are joining today's meeting under AB 2449 due to being sick? And if you can also confirm that there are no individuals under the age of 18 with you.
Correct. I'm confirming both.
Thank you so much for the confirmation. And with that, we can move on to item 3, which is the review of the Program and Planning Committee summary minutes from April 24th, 2025. And with that, I'll hand this back to you, Committee Chair Sagala.
Any comments from the commissioners? Carla?
If there aren't any changes to the meeting notes, we can mark them as received and filed for the record. Hearing none, we can move on to the next item, which I'll hand this off to you,
Thank
Carla.
you. Now, finally, Carla.
I've been so excited to share a few words. Folks, it is really, really lovely to see many of you here. This afternoon, we really wanted to take some time to give John Wagner all the attention he loves so deeply. In reality, it is really rare when any of us get to connect with folks like John, and we really want to spend some time, John, to share how much we absolutely adore you, respect you, and I want to share a few things about John that many of you know already. John, your time, your partnership, and the way you show up for all of us is really, really rare. When we put up a value of integrity, I will always, always picture you. I will picture you because their integrity often means having really, really tough conversations and being really clear that our goal is the children and families we serve. And John has been really, really clear about that for all of First 5 LA. And when I say integrity, he shows up exactly how you see him at board meetings, on one-on-ones. It is consistent, and it is something that we really, really need in the environment that we're in right now. I also want to share how much care John has for all of us. John, I could not have transitioned into this role without you. You share your expertise so deeply. You care so much about our team members. You are really, really clear about what our North Star is and how we get there for our kids. And I want to share in developing our strategic plan, I should pause. John is transitioning And, well, his last day will be September 30th. This is, oh dear. I was so excited to say how amazing he is and wonderful he is. So in celebration of that, for folks that are hearing this the first time, just want to share that's where this is coming from. And John's last day will be September 30th. When John and I had a chance to work together the first year as we were, my first year as we were looking at our strategic plan, we had a lot of meetings in this very room with some team members, with community members. And John, when we were discussing basic needs, a lot of us really got academic, philosophical. And John sort of paused, really impassioned, and said, there is nothing more basic than a child being born healthy. And that was the grounding that we needed to make sure that that goal number one continues, carries, like, it is, what is it that our families need? And you always take really, really philosophical issues and ground them. And you've grounded First 5 LA. In addition, John has this wicked sense of humor, folks. Like, I don't know how he could find for everything. We were earlier today, Julie pulled together a really nice get-together with team members. And John had all staff in stitches the whole time. And you do that for all of us. And there's times when our work is so serious, and you remind us to find joy, always remind us to stay grounded. So with deepest gratitude, words can never, ever really capture all that you have done for us. You have built the First 5 LA Foundation that we are working on. You have set us up for success. You continue to be a thought partner. And John, I am deeply, deeply grateful for your partnership during this whole time. And I respect, and we will miss you really deeply. So with that, for anyone that knows John, he does not love all this attention, so we decided to give him more. So I will turn it over to a few folks in the organization to say a few words. And JR, if we could turn it over to you, and I'll bring my mic.
Yeah, when I passed by John, I just said more love, John. Yeah, I'll take a moment here to just kind of reiterate and make John more self-conscious about how great a person he is. So just as a recap, John has more than 20 years of public leadership experience, California, Wisconsin, Massachusetts, where John advanced policies that improve access and outcomes for families. Prior to First 5 LA, he has served as Director of California Department of Community Service and Development. Before that, Director of California Department of Social Services. And beyond that, he was also, back in Massachusetts, appointed Assistant Secretary for the Office of Children, Youth, and Family Services. Also served as a Commissioner to the State Department of Transitional Assistance. So definitely a body of work that John has contributed for this. In my eyes, he's a public servant. He's a coworker of mine, that I can say. And in my eyes, in building upon what Carla said, just a great human being for that. So I appreciate that, John. And then back here with First 5 LA, John has spent here 12 years with our organization. And I know I said this earlier because we had a little get together, but I know it's cliche that you made your mark, but I believe more than that. You have helped position First 5 LA in the best way possible under the circumstances that we are having under the constantly changing environment that we're experiencing and limited resources. And you did it in a way, again, building upon with Carla, you did it in a way that was thoughtful, intentional, with class, and like Carla said, integrity, in the style that only John Wagner can pull off for that. So enjoy your time with your partner, Rick, John, and again, I'll miss you. We'll all miss you here, and First 5 LA will miss you. Yeah, thanks, John.
I think Deanna will go, and then I will go last.
Director of Family Supports. I had the privilege of working with John for the past 4 years. John, as Chair mentioned, spent 12 and a half years here, a good portion of that in operations, and then came to the program side. So it really gave him a unique window to see all sides of the house and how everything works and how it all comes together to advance the work for families and children. So I was always impressed with his smarts, his strategic thinking, his ability to connect the dots, and he really brought that focus and ability to look at
Dive into the details. Whoa. So appreciated his ability to move the work forward and all his connections and relationships to all of you and to the county and how we all worked to have collective impact together. He has incredible knowledge of First Five LA's inner workings, and we know we will strive to fill those gaps. Without you, you'll be greatly missed. I also know, I'll share something that I had shared earlier with staff today. You know, we had a retreat and work we did with the center on the program side of the house and developed a why, kind of a center team, like why do we do this work? Really diving into what drives us all. So I hope it resonates with your why as well. We believe success happens when we contribute to a greater cause. How we do that is by using our knowledge and expertise to solve complex and challenging problems. And ultimately, what we bring are better ways to advance positive outcomes for children prenatal to 5 and their families. And I think this is really exemplified by John's work at First Five and throughout his career, and really always striving to understand and make things better. So with that, we're happy to see you move on to enjoy life with Rick, your beloved dog, with wine and art on cruises, not with cooking. It's not a cook. But you will be missed, and thank you so much for everything you do and have done. Yeah. Linda.
Okay, I think everybody knows, just from a few months ago, I get a little emotional with farewells. I first had to say goodbye to a staff member, and now saying goodbye to my supervisor. So to be honest, John, when you told me that you were leaving, I have to admit, I wasn't quite present. I had just gotten back from like a long trip, and like any long trip, you know, you have jet lag, you're just getting back into the rhythm of things. And when we met and you gave me the news, I was staring at the screen, I just thought, is this jet lag? Am I not like on it? I'm completely lost. Did John really say he's leaving? Is he leaving First Five just for today, or is he leaving permanently? And so, you know, with all that to say is, I just couldn't imagine this place without you. Your leadership, John, has been nothing short of transformative. From the very beginning, you laid a very strong foundation, you know, launching 3M to make sure that we had the right policies and procedures in place. Without that structure, you know, we could be running amok a little bit, you know, doing what we wanted to do without any structure in place. So you really brought order when there could have been chaos, and you really brought vision where there could have been uncertainty. You know, I started with First Five just 6 months after you. And so I've had the privilege of working with you very closely on board-related work. And in that time, I've witnessed your steadiness, your wisdom, and just the way you built trust, you know, with staff, with board members, and community partners, just across the entire county. And the one thing I've always appreciated deeply is that I think for some staff, you don't realize how much board work really touches the entire organization. And so you're dealing with CAP, finance, legal, you know, programs. And everything comes to the board table. And you've just been very thoughtful in the way you do your work. And just in board relations, I really got to work closely with you, where, you know, I saw just firsthand just all the wonderful things that you did for First Five LA. And although there's so many wonderful things to say about you, there's just not nearly enough time to capture all of that. But I would say for me, and as we saw today for many, what really sets you apart is your humility. You know, you've shown that, you know, leadership just isn't about being the loudest voice in the room. It's really about listening, about lifting others up, and about creating space for people to succeed. So you've always done that with an open heart. And you really reminded us that influence doesn't come from demanding attention or anything like that. It's really through earning respect. So there's this quote from another highly respected John Wooden. Being a Bruin, I had to talk about John Wooden. That always makes me, I'm not going to talk about sports, John, because we know, you know, you're not that great on sports. But, you know, there's this quote, and he says, "It's amazing how much can be accomplished if no one cares who gets the credit." And that's always been your style. You built partnerships across LA County, you forged relationships, you know, with our partners, and all doing that while never taking credit or caring about the credit or taking the spotlight for it. John, your legacy is woven into this organization. It lives in the policies that will guide us for many years to come. Oh, I hate getting emotional. And in the relationships that will continue to benefit children and families across the county. The way that you've modeled what true leadership looks like long after today will continue in the systems you built and in the culture of humility that you fostered during your tenure here. You know, we will miss you more than words can say, John. But we are grateful for the example that you've set, for the impact that you've had, and the imprint that you've left. So thank you, John. Thank you for everything. It's not the end of your chapter, it's really the beginning of your legacy. It's the beginning of your legacy because just like a tree that you've planted, the roots will continue to grow and the branches will continue to grow and provide shade and shelter for many years to come, even after you're gone. So thank you, John.
Thank you, Linda. It just shows, John, how much you mean to all of us. And board members, we invite all of you to join us at Trax afterwards. And I know that some of you want to also share some words. I definitely see it. So, yes.
So my colleagues, Emily Putnam-Hornstein, Reagan Faust, and I have put together a study. It's a single subject design study, and it's called The Impact of Subject A on the Lives of Children and Families in LA County. I won't read you the whole abstract, but the end is findings demonstrate that the integration of Subject A's interpersonal strengths, cross-sector expertise, and applied strategy have significantly advanced organizational effectiveness and community impact, ultimately improving outcomes for children and families and the lives of those with whom he works. So I'm one of those. You've greatly improved my life through our work together. I'm going to be like Linda, because you've been an extraordinary leader here, John, at a time when we so desperately needed extraordinary leadership at First Five that would reach out and partner in ways that were and are really necessary, and it's your whole lifetime's expertise that you brought to the table here. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
You know, I think that honestly, we all end up, hopefully everybody in this room is extraordinary at their job. You know, that's why we're here. And we strive to be excellent and create that kind of impact on the people that we take care of, the people around us, et cetera. But I think in teaching in medical school and trying to teach young doctors, the one thing I try to engage them in identifying is how to be remarkable. Because people will remark on who you are and how you impact them on a very personal level. And a lot of doctors are extraordinary. Very few of them are remarkable. Very few administrators are remarkable. They're good, but they're not remarkable. And your friendship to all of us is remarkable. I want to thank you for that.
Thank you. Ditto. You've been excellent. Thank you for welcoming us all and really forging forward in your policies and clarifying for us. So much of the time, here comes John, and all of a sudden, it all comes together. I think from the first day I met you, I was getting an orientation, and you came in and visited. And then I also remember you at the first conference where I was like deer in a headlight because we had that retreat, and you go, just do your thing. And so I said, I get nervous. That's okay. That's a human trait, and you have just been there the whole time. So thank you so much. Thank you for everything. All right. Any other comments? All right. All right. Let's go ahead. Yeah.
As much as this goes against every fiber in my being, I do, I do want to just make some comments. And first of all, this is kind of emotional for me too, which is why this is so difficult and probably why I lasted 12 and a half years, because I wanted to avoid this very moment. Not because of what has been said, because I don't deserve it. It is very, very generous, very, very humbling. And there are some folks that I would like to acknowledge and appreciate, just because none of this work is done individually. And I want to start with the senior leadership team, and specifically Carla. I've had the chance to work at First 5LA for many years, almost 13. And sometimes when leaders come into an organization, there's a tendency to clear house, especially in the management side and the executive management side, and that's certainly true in government. At least it's been my experience. And Carla was very open to having me continue to work here and serve as the executive vice president, and she was open to that. She was supportive, and we've been able to have many direct conversations, and I've learned so much from her. And her experience, both professionally and her personal story, is exactly what First 5LA needs at this point in our juncture. We've seen the evolution of First 5LA go from almost a piggy bank with a huge fund balance to a more strategic partner in policy and systems change, and now applying that policy and systems change to the benefit of those with lived experience and the community voice. And that is truly an exciting evolution, and you all are part of that, and I want to acknowledge Carla's leadership in it. And I just also want to acknowledge JR and Araya, who, you know, we call ourselves, so Carla, myself, JR, and Araya are known as the senior leadership team. And my experience with both JR and Araya, almost a year, I think, coming up on your anniversary, is the commitment that these folks have to the work. They have incredible external experience, JR in operations with the managed care plans, Araya with community and deep community work. And it's not about egos and personal agendas. It's about how do we use that experience to move work forward. I really want to thank the staff too. We did have this gathering earlier, and it's overwhelming to hear from colleagues who really deserve the kudos that you're giving for all of the patience and partnership that they've exhibited with me over the last 12 and a half years. It's, you know, you begin to, as you work in this area, which is not easy work, we all know that, but you hear the individual stories of what brings people to this work, and you learn those individual stories, and each and every one of you has that. that brings you to this work. So I'm so struck by that, and I've been so buoyed by that. And the other aspect of the staff is its tendency to do its work collaboratively. It's not about this department or this team. It's really about how do we work together across the organization to advance our work. And that has been so impressive, and I thank you all for that. And then finally, the board. Once a month, we have an all-staff meeting in this room. And I shared, walking through for the first time, these doors, just like Deanne is about to. I shared my experience almost 13 years ago walking through those doors and going back into that corner room for my interview. And it was the first time I came into this room, and Craig Steele escorted me through. And the visual of that horseshoe and that podium of where systems leaders and practitioners come together in order to look singularly at how to improve children's lives and the families with young children, and the systems that administer a lot of services and supports that we often all of us could use, is really an incredible reminder of the power and the partnership of this organization with those leaders and those practitioners that help us move our work forward. With all of that said, you know, I shared with Carla about a month and a half ago, I was facing the situation in my personal life where my father was increasingly getting ill and wanting to spend more time, and he has since passed away. But there's a number of family things that I need the time to do. And quite frankly, given the state of things in the world, I would really like the opportunity to create the space to take the step back and figure out where I can continue to do and contribute whatever I can going forward. So it may very well be investing my own peace of mind. It may very well be working on graver issues. I just need the time and space now to do that, and I've been so appreciative of this organization for giving me that, and I know I'm fortunate to be able to do that. And so as Tennessee Williams said, so Linda, I'm going to also use a quote, there is time for departure even when there's no certain place to go. And I think it's time, it's important for us to always create that space. So I truly, from the bottom of my heart, am so humbled by this, and thank you all for all of the work and partnership over the years. Thank you.
Okay, dry our eyes. Thank you, John. Thank you, everybody. Thanks again. All right, so we are on item 5, which is the presentation of the First Five's annual report, led by Kim and Laura. With that, I hand it over to them.
Good afternoon, everyone. I will wait I'll just begin as the slides are being pulled up. My name is Kimberly Hall, and I'm the Director of Impact and Accountability here at First Five LA. So as part of our Proposition 10 funding requirements, First Five LA submits an annual report to First Five California each year. Today, we'll be sharing highlights from the fiscal year 24-25 annual preliminary findings as we prepare for the full report to be presented to the Board of Commissioners on October 9th. I do want to acknowledge that the supporting our state annual reporting work is Lamore Zimskin from DataLink Partners. So let's talk a little bit about what we'll cover today. First, we're going to start with some background on the annual report. Next, we'll take a look at the preliminary results for 24-25. Then we'll summarize key takeaways from the findings. And finally, we'll provide an overview of next steps in the state annual reporting process. Before we dive in, I wanted to share a little context for how to view today's findings. First, I wanted to note that the results that are going to be presented are through First Five California's result areas and are therefore focused primarily on the direct services that we provide. Second, I wanted to note that while First Five California is making changes to its reporting framework beginning in fiscal year 24-25, and you might remember we mentioned some of those changes at the June board meeting, what you're going to see today is similar to what you've seen in past years. So the new framework with a stronger emphasis on equity and outcomes will be reflected in next year's reporting. So with that, I'm pleased to turn it over to my colleague Laura, who led our annual reporting work for fiscal year 24-25, as she walks us through the background and preliminary results.
Great, thank you, Kim. I am trying to figure out my technology here. Give me a second. It is not working for me. Could we go on to the next slide, please? All right. Well, thank you, everybody. Again, my name is Laura Covarrubias. I'm a senior data strategist with Impact and Accountability here at First 5 LA. Thank you all for having us. We want to start our presentation by first giving you, as Kim mentioned, a little bit of a background and a bit of a refresher on the First 5 annual report. Next slide, please. So, as you know, one of the funding requirements for Proposition 10 is for First 5 commissions to submit the annual report to First 5 California. The annual report gets submitted in October after the close of the fiscal year. So today I'm going to be sharing data from our fiscal year 24-25. Once the reports are received from all the counties, First 5 California synthesizes this information into a single report. You may recall, as Kim mentioned, we came back in last June, where commissioners approved the receipt and filing of First 5 California's fiscal 23-24 annual report. Now, the First 5 California annual report that we are required to submit is consisted of 3 parts. Section 1 is a summary on revenue and expenditures. Section 2 is a demographic worksheet, which includes total populations reached and a breakdown of their characteristics. And Section 3 is 2 short written summaries highlighting evaluations conducted and other county highlights from that year. Thank you. Next slide, please. So First 5 LA has developed a system for gathering the necessary information from contractors, grantees, and staff to be able to complete the 3 sections. We start by issuing out a survey to our contractors and grantees at the end of the fiscal year, which provides us with data from all 3 of the report sections. We also obtain specific information specifically for Section 1, Revenue and Expenditures Summary, from our Finance Department, who provides us with final financial audit data that you'll be hearing about later today as well. Lastly, First 5 LA staff helps us gather information for our evaluation summary and our county highlights. Can I get a click, please? Thank you. So today I'm going to be guiding us through a deeper dive into what we are reporting this year under Section 2, which will be the demographic worksheet. And just as a reference, we will be providing the full annual report once it is finalized, and they will be posted with the October board meeting. Thank you. Next slide, please. So before diving into the data, I do want to spend a little bit more time, as Kim had mentioned earlier. We are required to report under First 5 California's result areas, and I just wanted to give a little bit of context behind that. So we have 4 results areas in total. We have child health investments, which are those that provide services and supports to improve child health, and that includes things like Welcome Baby and select home visiting. We also have child development investments, which are those that provide funding for and improving early learning programs. We have family support investments, which provide either short-term or intensive family supports. And we have the systems of care. These are investments that focus on advancing systems change, such as policy, public advocacy, as well as system building efforts. I'd like to note, First 5 California does require commissions to report on the demographic of individuals who receive direct services from programs under the Improving Child Health, Child Development, and Family Support result areas only. So as improving systems of care investments typically focus on policy and system change, we're not required to report on individuals impacted through this work directly. Next slide, please. Might be a few clicks, sorry. Thank you. Okay, so let's dive into some of the preliminary results. I'm going to be sharing how First 5 LA contracts and grants were distributed across the results area, and then dive a little bit deeper into the populations reached through our direct service investments. Next slide, please. So starting off with our contracts and grants, in fiscal year 24-25, we had a total of 59 programmatic contracts and grants. The bars in the chart shown on the screen show the proportion of contracts and grants that fell within each of the 4 result areas. So as you can see, the bar in blue shows that about half of our investments fall under the Improving Systems Care. As a reminder, these are the programs that focus on system and policy change. It includes many of our investments, including the Best Start Regional Network grantees, Policy Advocacy Fund, and Help Me Grow LA. Given our strategic plans focus on catalyzing public policy efforts in collaboration to strengthen public systems, it's no surprise to see that 30 out of the 59 investments fell under this results area. Now, the remaining 3 bars are in green, orange, and pink represent our investments in projects that provided direct services. So you'll see that over 40% of our total investments fall under the Improving Child Health. Again, this is the result area that includes home visitation and welcome baby grants. 3% of our investments fall under the Improving Child Development, which included QSLA impact investments, which provides direct services exclusively to providers. And last, 2% were categorized as Improving Family Supports, which covered our Little by Little literacy program. Next slide, please. So now let's take a deeper dive into the children and families reached through the direct service investments. So in fiscal year 24-25, our direct service investments reached about 59,000 children and 75,000 primary caregivers. Now you'll notice that the primary caregivers are the most that we served out of these 2 categories. I want to note primary caregivers include not only parents and guardians, but also grandparents and other family members who provide care. It also includes roughly 1,500 individuals who were pregnant when receiving services. In total, our projects reached 17,600 unique families, which reflects First 5 LA efforts to ensure children having nurturing relationships and environments. I do want to remind us at this point again, these numbers represent only children and families that receive direct services categorized under the 3 out of the 4 First 5 California result areas. This year, we also had a First 5 LA grantee who typically falls under the Improving Systems of Care category, who provided emergency support to families in response to the January wildfires. And although these families are not included in our final counts to First 5 California, their efforts will be included in our county highlights, which we'll be presenting more in the October Board of Commissions meeting. Next slide, please. All right, so now I want to take a little bit of time talking more about specifically the children reached under our investments. So looking first at age, we see that we are continuing to reach a higher percentage of children under 3 years old. This last fiscal year, 71% of the children reached were under 3. Next slide, please. When we break down children reached by race and ethnicity, we see that about 9 out of 10 children reached through our direct investments were children of color. The highest percentage overall, 79%, identified as Latino and Hispanic, followed by 7% Black or African American, 7%, and 4% Asian and 4% white. Notably as well, this year, First 5 California requested commissions to also report out on individuals who identify as Middle Eastern or North African for the first time. And this year, less than 1% of children reached through direct services were identified as such. Next slide, please. So to help us get a better picture of who received direct services from First 5 LA's investments, we've created this graph to demonstrate the race and ethnicity of children served through First 5 LA and the 0 to 5 population in LA County as a whole. So you'll see here in this graph, First 5 LA's population reached is represented in teal, and the LA County is 0 to 5 population as a whole is represented in pink. Since many of our direct services investments also prioritize children and families and communities with relatively fewer financial resources, we also included a proxy for children who live in low-income households, using children whose births were covered by Medi-Cal in the last 5 years. This low-income proxy is represented in green. So you'll see, just at a glance, race and ethnic backgrounds among the children reached through First 5 LA investments more closely resemble those of the low-income children. For example, we see a much higher percentage among Latino and Hispanic children, and a much lower percentage among Asian and white children. I do want to note, First 5 LA has developed tactics to be rooted in equity, and therefore the work that we're implementing is focusing on populations most impacted, ensuring that our efforts will be equity-driven. Next slide, please. The last data point I want to share with y'all today is a breakdown by primary language spoken of homes and children reached through our direct service investments. You can see here, most children reached came from a household that spoke primarily English. 28% spoke Spanish as a primary language, and 1% spoke another language, including Khmer Tagalog, or we were marked as unknown. One limitation I do want to note here, we did observe in our previous slides, there is a wide diversity of the children that we are reaching, but one consideration is that this is only capturing primary languages spoken at home. So it's possible that some families reached through our direct service investments, live in multilingual homes, but still reported English as their primary language. Next slide, please. So with that, I want to give us a quick summary of findings and move us on to next steps. There are 5 key takeaways from today. One, over half of our investments focused on advancing, one half of our investments focused on advancing systems change. 2, caregivers were the largest group reached by direct service investments. This included pregnant individuals and other family members. 3, most children reached were under 3 years of age. 4, over 90% of children reached were children of color. And finally, most children reached came from homes that speak English. Next slide, please. Before we transition over to discussion, just want to give a quick overview of the next step for the state annual report. Right now, staff is finalizing the report. We're going to be incorporating the final revenue and expenditure data. We will then come back October 9th to the Board of Commissioners meeting to request approval to submit the full annual report to First Five California. And then once we receive approval from the commissioners, we will be submitting the report through First Five California's data system by the October 31st deadline. So with that, next slide, I will close it off and open it up for questions or discussion. Thank you.
Any comments, commissioners?
You mentioned highlights that go in the reporting, and I just wondered, I'm hoping that some of those highlights include how First Five is working with county government and key county departments and so forth. I have a lot more insight than I used to about what other First Fives across the state are doing. And it's really impressive, the vitality and the inventiveness of all the First Fives. So I know personally the report format, that's what you got to focus on because that's the report format. But I just hope we'll also showcase some of the sort of kinds of partnerships that we're developing, the cross-system work that we're supporting, et cetera. I think it's something across the state that's happening, but it's happening differently in counties where they are directly connected to county government. And that was always one of the issues with us, as we sort of at the beginning said, no, we're not directly connected, but over time have said, we kind of have to be connected because that's where so much of the resources are. So I hope we can highlight some of those pieces too.
Thank you.
I don't know if this is appropriate, but I have a question about the equity index, or we can't use this on this report, correct?
That is correct.
Because of the format, right?
Yes, so the annual report for First Five California requires us to report on our direct investments. Our equity index will be looking at conditions throughout LA County, that some which may be under our direct investments, some which will not be.
See that, so thank you.
We're excited to share it when it comes time.
Thank you. Any other comments, commissioners? The public, do we have any questions?
Confirming there are no public comments on this item.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So item 6 is a presentation on First Five annual auditing process led by Rahul, Raj, and Kylie. Thank you.
Okay, well, we're going to go ahead and start. Good afternoon, commissioners. Welcome. Welcome First Five staff and guests. For today's presentation, we will start with an update to the GFOA award. Oh, yeah, it does work. All right. So starting with today's presentation, we'll update you all on the GFOA award. I will then provide an overview of the annual audit process and the results of the fiscal year 2024-25 annual comprehensive financial report, also referenced as the ACFR. I will then invite our Senior Accounting Manager, Raj Kumar, to my right, to provide some highlights of the fiscal year activities for fiscal year 24-25, as well as some 3-year trends that we are observing. And prior to opening it up for questions and/or comments, we will then invite Kyle Bartle of iBailey to make his remarks as part of the exit conference and audit closeout process. So starting with the GFOA award, the Government Finance Officers Association of the United States of America, currently the United States of America, and Canada, also known as GFOA, has awarded the Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting for our fiscal year 23-24 ACFR. This is an impartial panel that has judged this report to meet the high standards of program, which includes demonstrating a constructive spirit of full disclosure to clearly communicate its financial story and to motivate potential users to read our annual financial report. This Certificate of Achievement is the highest form of recognition in government accounting, and it's an attainment that represents a significant accomplishment by this organization and its management team and staff. This does represent the 17th consecutive year that First 5 LA's financial report have received this award, and I really just want to applaud the entire organization and its staff for its due diligence in continuing to achieve this high standard. Now to move towards the actual annual financial report for fiscal year 24-25. Under the California Health and Safety Code, which establishes First 5, each county commission is required to prepare the audited financial statements in accordance to generally accepted accounting principle, also referred to as GAAP. The code also includes state-specific guidance to be established and for those controls and process to be assessed by our auditors at the year end. Under GAAP, basic financial statements and supplementary statements at the fund level are prepared. But our report does go beyond the basic financial statements and state compliance, as well as reflects a detailed view of the Commission's financial position as of June 30th, 2025. The overall process does take several months to complete with three phases. There's the entrance interim field work. There's the entrance field work, there's the interim field work, and then the final field work, which includes the final report that we are reviewing with you today. The process does involve the entire organization. It also includes one-on-one interviews with some of our board members, the executive leadership team, directors, and staff. It also requires communication and confirmation with both the county auditors and treasurer's office, as well as our legal counsel on ending pending litigation. During this time, the auditors will review many of our financial transactions that occurred throughout the year, evaluate our internal controls, and in addition, they also test required compliance under the Health and Safety Code. With the board having oversight of the audit and as steward of public funds, we complete our journey by presenting the fiscal year 24-25 audit in today's public forum as an information item. And from there, we will include it as part of the consent item at the October commission meeting for your approval. Now for the results. For the fiscal year 24-25 ACFR, we have received an unmodified opinion, which means in non-accounting terms, a clean audit. This is the highest level of assurance an auditor can provide, and it means that there are no issues with the organization's financial statements, and it's an indication that it is a strong endorsement that the financial information is reliable. As part of the audit, they do review prior year, review of the prior year findings that were identified. And as a result of that review, the auditors concluded that the findings have been addressed and corrected with the appropriate changes to our internal controls that were implemented, that no further actions in this year's reconciling process was required. So this is just an assurance that all the findings that were addressed in last year's audit have been addressed, and they concurrently don't exist moving forward. For this fiscal year 24-25, there was a finding of non-compliance to our salaries and benefit policy and procedures that was identified. This is in relationship to the current board's policy of our payroll and our pay scale, where the auditors found that in the pay scale, we do not identify some of the staff that we currently employed, meaning part-time staff or staff that do not receive benefits. So because those staffs are not identified within our policy and within the scale, the recommendation is that we need to review our policy and to make sure that we are including of all of the positions that we hire within the organization. This finding does not result, I want to repeat, does not result in an adjustment to our financial statement, nor does it impact on our financial statements at all. It is an internal control of a compliance of the health and safety code. While this finding does not have the direct impact on the financial statement, it does pertain to the compliance with the California Health and Safety Code, and because of that, we do take those seriously. And as regulated by First Five California, we acknowledge the importance of maintaining full compliance with all applicable state requirements and take this finding seriously, and have initiated corrective action to address the noted issues with our HR department. And then this is a new slide that we historically do not represent in our presentation because it really is an immaterial item. And these are year-end adjustments that we process at the year-end that we agree with our auditors that we must do in order to close our books. The reason why I am highlighting this is because we're seeing a lot of constraints due to the timing. And what I mean by that is information that we're receiving from First Five California is coming slower than what it has in the past, and information from some of our contractors and vendors that helps us close the end of the year-end books have been slower than what we have experienced in the past. We do not see this as an ongoing issue, but we do want to acknowledge that these are issues that are not under our constraints, but as good partners, we have already been reaching out and making sure that we're able to close these gaps. And from here, I'm going to pass it to our accounting manager, Raj, to highlight the fiscal activities and to review some of the three-year trends that we're seeing. Raj?
Thank you, Raul. Good afternoon, commissioners, staff, and guests. First of all, I want to say thank you to all of you for giving me this opportunity. I joined this organization over a year ago, and I feel very fortunate to be working with a great finance team and our outstanding leaders. And I will say a special thanks to Raul, JR, and Carla. Because of them, I am sitting in this seat. So under Raul leadership, just we completed our audit for the year 24-25. So now we will move to the slides. And just go back, last one. And as per we are showing in this slide, June 2024, board has already approved our budget for the year 24-25, 91.7 million. and it will divide it in two segments. One is program, one is operating. Program, we have a 70.1 million, and operating budget, we have a 21.6 million. And board has already revised and approved our budget in March 2025. And the total amount will unchanged, but the program budget slightly down up to 70 million, and the admin and program support budget was little high, 21.7 million. Now we will move to our revenue part. So for the year 24-25, we closed our book with the revenue of 67.5 million, and that is matched over statements of activity, and it will divide it in 5 segments. Tobacco tax, first one, 33.2 million. Second one is Prop 56 backfill, 14.5 million. California electronic cigarette tax, that is 805,000. And other revenue is 20 million. The other revenue is included the state commission program funds, local entity program funds, and the other general revenue. Lastly, we have a fair value adjustment. This time we have a unrealized gain, unrealized loss for 921,000. Now we will move to our expenditure. The total for the year 24-25, we closed our books 81.4 million as an expenditure, and it will divide in 3 segments. First one is program expenditure, that was 64.5 million, and the second one was program operating expenditure, 5.6 million. And total, our admin cost for this period was 11.3 million. Now we will move to our fund balance. As of closing of June 30th, 2025, we have a 256 million fund balance, and that was divided in 4 segments. First one is non-spendable, that is 267,000. That is basically, technically this is like advances to the guarantees. And second one, we have a committed fund balance of 61 million, and that will cover our all the approved program approved by the commissioners for the final budget 25-26. And the third one, we have a assigned committed fund balance, that is 134 million. That is for our reserve strategic plan for 2024 to 2029. And the last one, we have assigned fund balance, that is 60 million, and that will cover our 3 segments. First is admin support program, that will be 12.6 million, and the program administrative support 7.7 million, and last one will be the 40 million, that will be our 50% of total budget of 80 million. And next slide, we have it's also a fund balance of 256 million, just it's showing in a pie chart. You can see that. And now the next slide, we have a comparison of 3-year fund balance. So here 2023 beginning and closing, we have 24-25. 22-23 we have a 275.6 million fund balance, and next year we have a 23-24 268.67 fund balance, and this year 24-25 we have a 256.11 fund balance closing. And the next, now we have a 3-year comparison between revenue and expenditure. Total for 22-23, we have a revenue of 83.4 million, and we have an expenditure for that particular period, 91.95 million. And 23-24, we have a revenue of 82.42 million, and the revenue expenditure is 86.80 million. And this year, which we closed, 24-25, we have a revenue of 67.5. Compared to that, our expenditure was 81.50. And the 3-year comparison between program and admin cost. As you can see, 2023 beginning and closing 24-25. In 2022-23, we have a program and expenditure cost was 79.60, and we have a admin cost 12.30. Next year, program expenditure was 75.50, and admin cost was 11.30 million. And 2024-25, we have an admin cost of 11.30 million, and our program cost was 70.10 million. Before we will move on to Kyle, just we will say, like, if you have any questions,
Just before we move to invite Kyle, prior to inviting Kyle to make his closing remarks and to wrap up the audit, I think it's important when we look at these three-year comparison to really highlight some of the trends that we're seeing. So in relation to our fund balance, that's what we have, money on hand within our account with the county. You continuously see that the trend is continuously going down. That means that we're expending more than what we're bringing in our revenue, and that we're relying on our account in order to fulfill our budgeting. Hence why the long-term financial plan is so important, that we make sure that we live to what we're saying, meaning going from an $80 million organization to a $70 to a $60 million. It's extremely that we continue to stay fidelity to our long-term financial plan in order to make our fund balance more livable and reliable to our long-term financial plan. Again, when you look at the revenue and the expenditures, again, it reaffirms that trend of that fund balance. Revenue continues to go down, our expenditures are going down, but at a lower pace, requiring us, again, to be drawing down from our fund balance. So really, the key takeaway is we need to always keep in mind our long-term financial plan. We made a commitment to it. We need to stay fidelity to it in order to meet our long-term goals through the end of our long-term financial plan, which is fiscal year 34-35. So with that said, I will now invite Kyle Bartle to make his closing remarks, and then we will open it up for questions and/or any questions or comments. Kyle?
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having me, and happy to share the results of this year's audit. I'll take over the screen. We'll try to take over the screen. Okay, I hope you are seeing a PDF at this time.
Kyle, we're not seeing it yet. Maybe if you give us a minute or two.
Sure.
You're good to go, Kyle.
Okay. So
That's not it, folks. We're looking for a PDF. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, it looks like we're looking at a Word document, Kyle.
Word document. Okay, let's try again. Technology. How about now?
It still looks like it's a Word document. It looks like it's a letter to the Board of Commission. Is that what you want?
That is it. That is
Okay.
it.
All right.
Okay. So I was trying to go in order with the items we had presented on our agenda today. But I want to point you to the second item, which was the letter addressed to the Board of Commissioners. This is our summary communication that's required as part of our audit, and I want to walk through elements of this, and happy to walk through different elements of our opinions or our reports, as there are any questions. Just to kick it off, we have completed our audit of the financial statements of the Commission for the fiscal year ended June 30, 2025. We intend to issue our reports following the October board meeting, in which the reports are accepted. And we're happy to share that we do anticipate to issue clean opinions on our audit of the financial statements and on our audit of compliance with the California Children and Families Act. I say intend because we can't officially issue this until we get the approval of the report, but based upon our results, we anticipate sharing a clean opinion. So our audit requires that we communicate certain matters to you. And because our audits are governed by the generally accepted auditing standards as well as the government auditing standards which apply to your organization. Starting off, we communicated in our May 2025 discussion that our responsibility in our audit is to express and to form an opinion about whether the financial statements prepared by management have been prepared and presented fairly in all material respects in accordance with the generally accepted accounting principles of the United States. So we highlight that our audit of the statements does not relieve management of its responsibilities for the financial oversight. Our audit is to plan and perform our audit for reasonable assurance, not absolute, regarding whether or not there are any material misstatements in those financial statements. Our audit does include looking at the internal controls of the organization for the basis of designing our audit procedures, but the audit is not for the purpose of providing any assurance regarding the internal controls in place over financial reporting. We are also responsible for communicating any matters to you that, from our professional judgment, are relevant to your responsibilities for financial oversight of the organization. We have provided comments regarding, we call them control deficiencies or our findings, and an instance of non-compliance as Raul has already given you a highlight over. And happy to go through those items more if there are questions. As communicated in our May meeting, our timeframe for audit was consistent with the actuals that we previously communicated. Our audit teams are required to maintain ethics standards and independence of the members of your organization, and our firm members have complied through our standards. Our audit requires that we assess the financial statements for areas that are more susceptible to risks. We consider those areas to be significant risks. In our audit, there are two areas that we deem to be significant risks, which relate to the management of override of internal controls and the revenue risk for revenue recognition related to grant revenues. I want to highlight those because the management override of internal controls risk is inherent in every organization that relies upon internal controls. I want to say that that's not due to any unique circumstances of your organization. The second is related to the revenue recognition, which again is inherent to any organization that receives grants because there is subjectivity to the accounting recognition of those grants and when the revenue should be recognized in a particular period. Again, that's not unique to your organization, it's inherent to entities receiving grants. Then, in the preparation of the financial statements, management does select the accounting policies. And in its financial statements, in Note 1, management has disclosed the significant accounting policies used in the preparation of the financial statements. There are no initial selection of policies or changes to significant policies during the fiscal year 2025. The financial statements generally will also include accounting estimates, which are prepared using judgments by management in preparation of those amounts. However, there are no significant or sensitive estimates that we identified in our audit. There are at times certain financial disclosures that involve significant judgment and our sensitivity to the use of the statements, but there are none that we would highlight to you. We're happy to share that we encountered no significant difficulties or disagreements with management during the course of the audit. And during our audit, we are required to communicate all known and likely misstatements identified through the audit, other than those that are clearly trivial, and communicate them to management. There are no adjustments or misstatements which we identified and were required to be corrected as part of our audit. As Raul already summarized to you, there were several adjustments which management has passed upon recording, given that management determined they are immaterial, individually, and in aggregate to the financial statements. And as Raul mentioned, they are largely related to the timing of the information, because your organization is in a expedited financial reporting timeframe to meet its state reporting requirements. In our audit, we are also required to provide our opinion. And when there are circumstances modifying the substance or the presentation of those opinions, we do want to highlight that to you. So as you will see in our audit report for 2025, the commission did implement the Accounting Standard 101, which required adjustments to the reporting of compensated absences. This adjustment required the restatement of beginning net position as of July 1, 2024. So this purpose of this is to highlight this adoption as well as the impacts on the financial statements regarding this. We will obtain representations from management that coincide with the issuance or finalization of our audit opinions. In some cases, management may consult with other accountants regarding auditing or accounting matters. However, we are not aware of any consultations impacting this year's audit. In the normal course of business, in the audit relationship with the commission, we discuss a variety of matters regarding accounting treatments of routine matters. However, none of these matters discussed resulted in a condition to our retention as the commission's auditors. And with that, I could pause in case there are any questions before I jump over to the opinions. Any questions?
Looks like there's no questions at this time, Kyle.
Okay. Bear with me, my PDFs are tired today. So included in the draft of the ACFR, you'll see a draft of our independent auditor's report, which is our opinion upon the financial statements. And as you will see, we do intend to express a clean or an unmodified opinion, which is the highest level of assurance that we can provide regarding the material accuracy of the financial statements. The second report included here is our report on internal controls over financial reporting and compliance. It's within this document that you see a summary of our observation that Raul discussed previously. I do want to highlight, as Raul did, that this matter is not something that impacts our opinion upon the financial statements, nor our opinion upon compliance with the Children and Families Act. The last item is our report on compliance with the Children and Families Act. in which we intend to issue a clean or unmodified opinion. And with that would conclude my items.
Thank you, Kyle. Well, that wraps our presentation. I now pass it to you, Commissioner Sagala, for any questions or comments from our commissioners.
Any questions, commissioners? Any comments? Ms. Vo, what about public comment?
Confirming there are no public comments on this item.
All right, let's break. We have 5 minutes, and it is 2:45. So see you back at 2:50.
We do have one
one
more
more.
slide, which is our
Thank
next
you.
steps.
No. Let's go ahead. We're early anyway.
Thank you. So as for next steps, can we put that slide up, please? So our intention is to bring it through the consent calendar at the October board meeting, where the board does take the action to approve. Based on the approval, then we will submit the report to the State Controller's Office, LA County, and First Five California. And then we will take this information to update our long-term financial plan, which our intention is to bring back to you through the budget process. So that would be our next steps, and at that time, I'll pass it back.
Thank you, Raul, Raj, and Kyle. And now we'll break. So we have, it's 2:46. 5 minutes, please. Thank you. Our last presentation will be led by Aurea and John G. from First Five, along with two external presenters, Paula Daniels from LA County Office of Food Services, and Tori Kazier from LA Neighborhood Land Trust. With that, I will turn it over to Aurea.
Thank you, Commissioner Segala. Good afternoon, Commissioners. My name's Aurea Montes Rodriguez, Vice President of Community Engagement and Policy here at First Five LA, and I'm thrilled to be joined by John Guevara, Senior Program Officer with First Five LA, and as you already said, Paula Daniels and Tori Kazier. We're all going to pronounce. You're going to correct us. Thank you, Tori. Today, we invite your continued ambassadorship and insights on the implementation of our First Five strategic plan. We're going to review the Vibrant Environments Initiative and why this matters for early childhood development. Hear from our guest speakers in systems and community about their respective work, and spark discussion about First Five LA's roles and opportunities to accelerate systems change and center family and community voice. The Vibrant Environments Initiative is grounded on the belief that every child should have nurturing relationships and every family should thrive in the community that they live in. This includes an environment where young children have access to affordable, culturally preferred, and healthy fresh food and produce, and safe, well-maintained, and welcoming parks, play areas, and open spaces. The recent crisis from the LA wildfires to the ice raids, combined with the sweeping federal changes like the passage of H.R. 1, underscore that families with young children thrive when access to healthy food and safe and welcoming outdoor spaces are available to all. They are necessities for a high quality of life and strong early development. Now, I'd like to ground us. We have this beautiful visual of our strategic plan with the goals, our objectives, strategies, and tactics. Today's presentation is going to focus, and I'm now looking at the screens behind you or in front of you, on the Vibrant Environments Initiative, which centers two objectives from our 2024-2029 strategic plan as approved by you, our board. The first objective is on increasing the percentage of children prenatal to age 5 who have access to sufficient choices for healthy foods. And the second focuses on increasing the percentage of children ages prenatal to 5 who have access to parks and open spaces. While the Prevention First initiative is really focused on meeting basic needs, the Vibrant Environments Initiative matters deeply to early childhood development because healthy foods and safe outdoor spaces foster physical, cognitive, and social development for young children. In terms of why this matters to young children, as I said, despite the challenging federal environment, I want to emphasize that children today and tomorrow need healthy foods and safe outdoor places to play, not only to survive, but to thrive. Therefore, we remain steadfast in our commitment to prioritizing the well-being of children and the environments in which they are raised. In regards to healthy foods, food insecurity in early childhood can lead to higher risk of developmental delays, poor health, and increased hospitalizations, and impact academic achievement. For parks and open spaces, decades of research have demonstrated that access to green space positively impacts children's physical, mental, and social development. And the benefits actually began before birth, as access to green space during pregnancy has been associated with decreased risk to low birth weight. In terms of grounding our work in community voice, the Vibrant Environments Initiative materialized after working with community members and hearing about the importance of the built environment in raising young children. three experiences that I want to touch on include first our more than 10 years of experience working with the Best Start community. So thinking about the 14 communities that we have been in relationship with for over 15 years. Second, our experience managing programs like the Built Environment Policy Advocacy Fund, focusing on healthy foods and parks and open spaces, and past partnerships with the LA Food Policy Council and DPSS on the Fresh Ideas and CalFresh report, and the LINK program, which focused on expanding parks and open spaces, for which the LA Neighborhood Land Trust was a grantee. And third, community input and listening sessions we hosted with community stakeholders last year to help inform our initiatives. In all of these efforts, we have heard from community members and stakeholders about their lived experience that access to healthy and safe, well-maintained, welcoming parks and open spaces are critical to young children and their families. And specifically from the listening sessions that we did last year, for food, many participants pointed to the policies, practices, and inequitable investments rooted in historical bias that contributed to the limited availability of healthy food options. This included complex eligibility requirements for food assistance programs and a lack of investments in stores serving neighborhoods with residents with lower incomes. And similarly, for parks, many participants pointed to policies, practices, and inequitable investments contributing to a limited availability of parks, inadequate maintenance of recreational spaces, lack of adequate trees and shading, and lack of involvement in land use planning, especially in densely built neighborhoods. Additionally, there were concerns about safety, pollution, and poor maintenance, which prevented families from using the spaces available in their communities. So with this, I'll turn it over to John to speak, to walk us through the priority work that we are doing, as well as opportunities for the Vibrant Environments Initiative. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Aurea. And you'll have to excuse me as I temper my excitement. The Vibrant Environments is what brought me and drew me to First 5 LA many years ago, and now with two kids, 2 boys under 5, I feel like all they do is eat and play. Okay. So my name is John Guevara. I'm a senior program officer with the Communities Department at First 5 LA. And here at First 5 LA, we remain committed to equity as one of our core values, honoring the wisdom of our communities and dismantling systemic barriers, many that Aurea had pointed out in the previous slide, to really address racial, poverty, and regional disparities. And we want and need those vibrant environments for every child in LA County, but we know through data that thousands of children, for many historical reasons, including budget decisions, land use, and zoning, have lower rates of access to those vibrant environments. Wanted to lay that that context out to provide a snapshot on the next slide. You might have seen a preview of the Equity Index a couple of months ago in May, and you will hear more actually next month. But we previewed the Equity Index, and in this slide here, we highlight the access to fresh fruits and vegetables. You could see that in the lighter areas are the lower access, suggesting a higher need, while the darker areas are the higher access, suggesting a lower need. And these are many of the communities that come to mind, historically, that have lacked the access to fresh fruits and vegetables. On the next slide here, you could see almost a virtually unchanged map. We're looking at the layer of access to safe parks. The lighter areas, again, lower access to safe parks and open space, suggesting a higher need. And we share these maps and data with you to really emphasize how critical food access and parks is to the healthy development of young children, and that these issues and inequities have persisted for generations and have not happened overnight. And it will take a concerted effort today with our systems partners, with our community-based organizations, First 5 LA, and commissioners to help ensure that generations of children currently and after us will benefit. I also do want to zoom out. In a board presentation a couple of months ago, Chris Haney talked about the federal budget impacts, and I really wanted to set this important context on food security in LA County. As you may already know, already a quarter of LA County residents are experiencing some type of food insecurity, and this is higher than the national average, which is 13%. And almost half of those households with food insecurity have children. And so when we're talking about HR 1 and the federal budget implications, that trickles down to many thousands of children and many thousands of families losing food benefits due to the new work requirements. And while the federal context is sobering, there's still a need for action on the local level, which is where we come to with First 5 LA's priorities on both access to healthy foods and parks and open spaces. So how we've narrowed this down through community listening sessions and internal staff engagement are 3 priorities. Number 1, continuing to ground our advocacy and investments in data through the Equity Index, building out that access to healthy foods layer, which I showed in a couple of slides ago. Understanding that access to fresh fruits and vegetables is one way to measure access to healthy foods. There are other ways to complicate our thinking or add to that analysis. Second, with the changes in the federal budget, we are committed to addressing the barriers that families will face as a result of HR 1. So looking at the increased utilization of food safety net programs in communities, and this could look like the use of technology to streamline eligibility and access to food safety net programs. And the third one, an important food source for many children is through our home-based child care facilities. We know that only half of child care providers in LA County are accessing. What you see here is the Child and Adult Care Food Program. It's a federal program which allows reimbursements for food for child care providers. In a recent convening, providers shared that the CACFP program is administratively burdensome, and we remain committed to supporting child care providers to access and advocate on a policy and advocacy agenda focused on the state and federal levels. So we're really looking at access to healthy foods in a holistic lens. Next is parks and open spaces. So similar to
We should ask, because this is going really longer. Just with you, I was at the meeting about working on the child and adult, I never got it right, child and adult care food program. So I'm assuming that what is implied here is that whole coalition of people who are working on it, you'll be part of helping to support, et cetera. Fabulous. I just want to make sure I understood what you were saying. That's really good.
Yes, absolutely. And I also don't like to take the sole credit. This is also on many of our staff that are involved in these priorities as well.
And also with emphasis, because you were at the convening on the home-based childcare providers.
Right,
Yes, okay.
exactly.
Yes.
We're following up with the policy roundtable for childcare and development with the conversation about that, et cetera. It's just, we'll make much more progress if we do it together, right? It's great.
That's all right. Appreciate it. Thank you. So transitioning to the slide on parks and open space, our 3 priorities that we've narrowed down to, similar to the food portfolio, is continuing to ground our advocacy and investments in the Equity Index data, so continuing to build out what access to parks and open space will look like through the use of data. And second, also honoring the wisdom of our communities, connecting with key partners like City of LA, LA County Parks and Rec, and the Best Start communities that we've been working with for 10 plus years in these high needs areas to ensure that the centering of community voices, that we're centering community voices and creating opportunities for families with young children. And we also want to do this in a way where we're building on the current countywide momentum. You might have heard of LA County increasing their investments through Measure A Parks and Open Space grants, which I believe Tori might talk about a little later. And City of LA also completing their, I would consider it a historic parks needs assessment, which included a really robust community engagement process. And the third, want to highlight that we have major world events happening in LA very soon, which I'm personally excited about. World Cup, the Super Bowl, and the Olympics. And we want to ensure that these investments leave a lasting legacy for families with young children. And also understanding that these world events are a flashpoint to issues that are deeply rooted in our county, and that we need to remain committed when the world is looking at us, that we are committed to prioritizing the needs of young children. So, as a whole, we've reviewed the Vibrant Environments Initiative, First 5 LA's priorities. Now I want to queue up our guest speakers, Paula Daniels and Tori Kier. Each speaker has 10 minutes, and we'll have 5-minute discussion after each speaker.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. I thought I had 15, so I'll talk faster. It's my bad. They were very clear about that. So good afternoon, commissioners and team. We really appreciate being part of this conversation. So I'm Paula Daniels, the new executive director of the new LA County Office of Food Systems, and I'll explain what that is in a second. But we actually opened our offices on January 6th. We had a really interesting pivot to urgent wildfire relief on January 7th, which we did do, coordinating urgent food needs. But I'll talk to you more about the vision of the office today, and also thank John Wagner for being part of the origin story, which I'll detail a little bit more later, as being part of the LA Food Equity Roundtable, which I was also part of when I was with the Center for Good Food Purchasing. So what I'm going to talk about here is what we hope to accomplish since we are a new organization. There's plans in place, and they are beginning to get underway, but are not quite there yet, and I actually have no idea how to use this. That one, okay, there. Okay, thank you. You can tell I'm already talking too fast. So that's our logo and our key phrases about what we mean about a healthy food system. It's healthy and affordable and fair and sustainable and resilient, and I'll talk about what that means. But I also think it's important to start with why we were formed and what we're trying to address. And all I'll say about this complicated slide is that we know that the externalized impacts of the current status quo food system, which is basically based on a design from the mid-20th century, are in these areas. There's been studies on this. These are the general areas where the negative consequences of the food system show up in health and nutrition areas, in the environment, worker health and well-being, in local economies and the loss of small farming, as well as factory farms, which also have consequences not only on the environment but on human health because of the antibiotic use in factory farms. And how this shows up in, oh, I hit the wrong thing. I'm so sorry. I think I closed the slide. Okay, there we go. In LA County, you already heard about the statistics about food insecurity, and John pointed out it's higher than in other places. I would say it's also higher in LA County than in our peer cities of Chicago, New York. It's slightly higher, and I do have some theories about that, but we'll save that for a longer conversation. But also we know that there are quite a few workers in the food system in LA County, and their pay tracks what we've learned about pay for food system workers around the country. Most of those jobs are lower paying. So that means that those working in the food system most likely also need nutritional assistance in one way or the other. So we do need to think about worker wages in the food system health as we think about that. And then we do have the environmental consequences that are well known about agriculture contributing to 1/3 of all greenhouse gas emissions, which means it's responsible for 1/3 of all climate disasters at this point. So that's something we need to think about in terms of how food is produced and our choices made along those lines. Specific to California, there is a loss of farmland, 93% in my lifetime in LA County. We don't intend to get that back, but we'll talk about how we want to weave in some thinking around, growing food in the county, but need to think regionally about farmland and our responsibility there. And one of those responsibilities as consumers is that we're seeing about 28 feet of land sinking in the Central Valley because of overpumping of groundwater in order to serve agricultural export economy. So just kind of think about, we got to keep that in mind as we think about our participation in this status quo food system. Not only that, but also the health impacts, which we have twice the rate of obesity and chronic diseases in America compared to other countries, and we have statistics for LA around those statistics. So I love this quote from Archbishop Desmond Tutu because it explains why we're called the Office of Food Systems. Because there comes a point where you need to stop just pulling people out of the water. You need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in, and then do something about it is our motto. So that's what we mean by systems. Why is all of this happening in the food system? Why are these consequences taking place? And what can we do about that? So I'll talk about some of my ideas. Basically, though, these ideas that I'm going to talk to you about are drawn from a lot of work around the world and in other nations around trying to change how our food system works, which is mostly a private economic enterprise, to thinking about it as a systemic, interconnected issue. This is a front cover of a United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization report that was just released this summer that has that main point. Business as usual is not going to work to solve these problems. We need to work in a more holistic, connected way in order to achieve better nutrition, better environmental values in production, and better working conditions and so forth. And this is an older peer-reviewed journal publication, but I like how it crystallizes the thinking. It's a food system paradigm shift from a economically driven food system based on market price, meaning cheap food at any cost, to a One Health driven food system that's based on recognizing the public interest in food and what our programs and projects need to do in order to fully recognize that and implement it. So basically a health-oriented system, not just for people, for planet as well. And people meaning not only health, but worker well-being, economic health. So here we are, ta-da. We're going to solve it all, ha-ha, right? I mean, but we're going to start, and we want to start doing it now. So we were established as a partnership between LA County and philanthropy. It was started as a board of supervisors, direction and motion, and philanthropy stepped up to provide the initial seed funding. So we are essentially operating as the R&D team for the county. We recognize that there's great work already happening with the Department of Social Services, with the Department of Public Health. They've been doing a lot of work for a long time. What's needed now is to provide that connective tissue across more departments than that. And so we are kind of the policy wonky team, basically, to figure out what types of catalytic investments in policy and otherwise can we make to lift all of these ideas further. So this, again, is a reflection of the partnership between the county and the philanthropic organizations that provided the seed funding. And I'm going to put out there our overarching goal is that we want to get to a 30% good food system. I would have said by 2030. That's coming up pretty close. Is that me making the TV change? No. Oh, okay. Oh, okay. Thank you, making it more visible. And I will say we're not there at 30%. We're probably at 5 to 10%. But if we can aim for like doubling, tripling that amount, that we create good jobs, provide healthy, affordable food, and we source it from places that respect the land, we're going to make a big difference. There are other countries that have a 30% goal. Brazil has that goal in their school food system. Singapore has that goal for its country. These goals, France has a 50% goal. So I'm going to see if we can get the county to a 30% goal. And we need to do, there's a lot on this slide. Let me summarize it by saying, what do we have to utilize the most in a consumer-based economy that we are as a county now, because we're not producing food, but we're consuming food? We can use our market power to make a difference in the food system. So we can use that market power to provide market demand, which is what farmers produce too. But through that market demand, we also need to have the infrastructure to make the distribution of that food and the demand equitable. So provide that infrastructure and invest in equitable distribution models across the supply chain. There are other regions that have done that. Philadelphia started one, kind of called a food hub. There's food hubs, which is that equitable infrastructure in other cities around the country. Chicago has a significant one. So those are just some examples. And I think that's, helping them drive some of their food insecurity rates down. So we want to build and scale that and provide more opportunity to grow food, provide access to land to grow healthy food as well, for a lot of the reasons that you'll probably hear about later. we are coordinating across municipal departments. This is a slide from an academic journal talking about why this needs to happen for food policy. So you know they list city and agencies. This parallels closely to county agencies. So we are working across a number of departments and have regular meetings with departments to address the intersectional issues, economic opportunity, workforce, poverty alleviation, health, sustainability, all of that is underway. And as an example, we worked recently with the Commission on Children and Family Services and the Executive Office on a 0 to 5 convening to address, there are issues that have been raised already. So that came up recently, and we'll continue to do that and work with the Department of Social Services and all the other departments on these issues. A goal is to align all 88 cities, and you've seen this county map a few times, but all 88 cities in the county around an already existing and very, a policy framework that has a lot of momentum. It's called the Milan Urban Food Policy Pact that was started in Italy in 2014. It has 6 categories of policies and 37 action steps. There are now 300 world cities signed on to this pact, 14 U.S. cities, and under Mayor Garcetti, the city of LA signed as well. So if we get all 88 cities signed on to this, and the policies are robust, they're good policies that I've looked at over the last 10 years, we can all be rowing in the same direction and moving together. And we know how much faster you go when you row together in the same direction. So that's a goal. And this is a slide just to show that there's a lot of above-the-line work that is visible, our organizing of stakeholders, which I'll talk about in a second. But a lot of our work is below that waterline and not that visible, working with county departments, trying to institutionalize the ideas, trying to find the catalytic intersections to move these ideas forward. So they're quieter conversations, but they're happening. So that's simply what this slide is meant to show, because I'll then talk about what we're working on now. Another great data map. So John showed one, his equity index, and you can already see from that, this is a heat map of food insecurity rates. The darker the color, the more the food insecurity. So it tracks with that equity index and that PARC index. We also have overlays in that map, and first I want to thank the Annenberg Foundation for funding this, and in partnership with USC. So USC's Public Exchange has developed this map, and we're going to be able to make this publicly available at the end of the year. So we're still beta testing right now. And we're going to be adding layers into it from that were funded by Cedars-Sinai to help for urban agriculture planning. So that's underway. But right now, what's shown in there is not only food insecurity, but food retail, CalFresh availability, and community garden locations. And there's a few other details in there that are important. So it's going to be a fun map to play with and be interesting to see how it ties in with your equity index map. So I mentioned that we're aligning cross-sector stakeholders. We are working with well over 200 organizations that work in the food system and food access space, as well as urban agriculture and food hubs. So we're aware of that wealth, actually, of community-based organizations and helping to coordinate, share best practices. We're also mapping out what they do, what their relationship structures are, what their services are, and I'm hoping that we can develop a metric-based tracker to show how much of the need they're actually meeting. Most likely there will be some gaps, but let's see how big they are and where they are. So that's part of our analysis. And then some of our initiatives, which I'll just go over relatively quickly, because I could spend an hour on each one. But some of our initiatives are in urban farming. And knowing that there are great organizations. I worked with Tori when I was at City Hall working on green infrastructure issues. So I'll let her speak more to that. And we want to support those efforts. But I want to introduce an idea that when we think about food systems, we rarely think about aquatic food, seafood, and those other things. I'm from Hawaii originally, so we definitely think about aquatic food there. But why not have that be more widespread? We are a coastal state, and there's a lot of coastline in LA County, but there's also a lot of ways to produce fish on land as well. So it's something I've been looking at for a while, and there's a lot of opportunity there. It's healthier, it's easier to process, easier to make available, so it should be more available to communities of need, and I think most diets accept seafood as well. So it'd be meeting people where they are with that. We have our partnership set up for that. And then in the community garden area, hoping to optimize the incentives for community gardens, the incentives to both have them in affordable housing projects in their capital stacks, be incentivized there, but then also incentivize continued maintenance. So we're working on that. And focusing also in food as medicine programs and how to address this systemically. We just had a meeting, a large convening yesterday that was put on with the Department of Public Health, and we participated in that and hosted a panel on sourcing, regenerative, meaning better production methods, regenerative sourcing for food as medicine. There's millions of dollars flowing in that area, but regenerative agriculture also has better nutritional value in addition to, it's planetary health as well as personal health that has the advantage there. So Rockefeller Foundation's been focusing in on that and funded this study by Harvard Law School, and we have had a lot of conversations around that. So that's where I can get wonky again on that procurement side, and I love that space. So I'm looking forward to that one. And speaking of wonky, we have public procurement, which is that market-based thing that I was talking about. So investigating how we can use a strategy of public procurement to make food more affordable across markets, possibly across food as medicine and in many other ways. And food hubs, I mentioned that, a nonprofit aggregation and distribution center, which will take that profit motive out, but maintain a mission-driven focus on it, an equity-driven focus on sourcing and distributing, is all part of the equation there. So these ideas have traction in a lot of other countries, and one example I'm going to give you here is Brazil. So this is also IPS Food. It's a well-known international panel of experts focused on food, and they just did this report also the summer of this year. Brazil lifted 40 million people out of food insecurity in 2 years. This is under their current administration, under President Lula, who had a number of these initiatives in place, including that 30% in school food I told you about before. He's had a chance to revisit that recently. And I think the main takeaway here is that it's through very focused governmental action and policies that are similar to the ones that would be great to implement here, but have been implemented in other cities around the world. The Milan Urban Food Policy Pact reflects these same ideas as well. And it's this cross-government coordination that really makes a difference in making all this come to life. But it includes the sourcing of school meals. I'm going to add food as medicine and other places where you can source food in a number of our programs, higher minimum wages. And I think with higher minimum wages, you raise the question of affordability, but I think some of these strategies I mentioned can hopefully address that. So where were we? Where are we going? We started, in the status quo. We had the LA County Food Equity Roundtable that John was a part of and really helped shape a lot of the thinking around. So we've started moving. We're now in the Activate section. That's where we come in, and then we're going to keep moving toward that 30% goal. So I want to end by reading from a book that I was given by Jemiah Hargens, who runs Quops Prop LA, and he has a pretty robust urban agriculture farm in his front yard on Crenshaw and Obama Boulevard. And he does this book called Captain Planted. And in it, I'll just not read the whole thing, but I'll read a couple pages. Believe in each other and those who came before, that a better food system can be fully restored. We've got to grow our food and care for the neighborhood because everything is better when we choose to do good. We want the best food for our bodies and minds. At times it's so expensive and really hard to find, all in the control of the hands of others. So wouldn't it be better from our sisters and brothers? Thank you. I'll make sure you can get copies.
Perfect for the kids.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much. Can we open up to questions to commissioners?
It was really interesting after Katrina. I went down to Louisiana to look at what they were doing about food and everything that happened down there. And obviously, food is a huge glue brings communities together because we all have different, I mean, my community is Norwegian. We don't get together because we don't even exist here, but, we do eat a lot of fish. But that was, but anyway, and down
Cod,
in
I
Katrina,
think,
what
is-
they did is they started using the school play arts in every elementary school in the area that had been devastated. When they went back in to restore the schools, they put in gardens and started from kindergarten teaching everyone how to grow food, which I think, I mean, I've had a food bank at my clinic, and I put a garden in at my medical clinic, a little discouraging, by the way, I mean, it is. But I think that what they did in New Orleans was really very intriguing because it started training kids very early
Right.
on what it was like to have, to watch things grow and eat fresh food, which I think obviously is a huge issue here in the inner city. So I'd love to know more about, what's what's happening. I feel occasionally a little discouraged by our efforts because it's hard to find the land to grow.
Yeah.
I think there's a way to combine both what we're talking about food-wise and open area-wise for inner city. And I think we should be doing that. I don't think there should be vacant lots in the inner city. I think they should all be playgrounds and gardens.
There's a really good example of that in a group called Alma Backyard Farms. So they have a parking lot right next to a church in Compton. And they turn that parking lot into an urban farm, and they use it to train K through 12 students, among other populations, on how to grow food. And then it's not that one, that's Jemiah Hargan's land, but they have a pretty robust, it's in a parking lot size. And then they have food boxes that they sell to the community there at a reduced price. So it's a good model. It's a good model. I'm sure Tori will speak more about community garden sites, but we hope to get them in affordable housing projects, in or near affordable housing projects as well. And there's also indoor gardening that's possible as well, hydroponic towers. And I was just at a restaurant that had towers of all their salad greens growing. So there's lots of avenues to do this.
Well, I'm a real proponent that we need to do it really aggressively in the inner city because
Yeah.
we have a tremendous culture of people who are living in poverty, who do all
Yeah.
their shopping at liquor stores,
Yeah.
which leads to a lot of brain
Yeah.
damage in their kids and
Yeah.
stuff like that. So I think it's important, but I personally think that every vacant lot in certain parts of the city should be a garden and a play yard.
That's what we're mapping out with Cedar Sinai support. We're trying to map out all the opportunities.
Buy those empty lots.
Thank you. I also love procurement. I work for the county. I'm from public health, but I just like huge, so yeah, I work with Dr. Quo, like Tony Quo is in my bureau, so really appreciate that focus because it's not like fun or exciting, but like you can get, I mean, we have these like really tough contracting mechanisms in the county and in many other private institutions, and like, this is the one area where it can be leveraged for good, as opposed to frustration. So I'm really like happy to hear that work. I know like, we're working with you on some efforts around like, greenhouse gas, like the food system, like kind of transport of food, and so really glad to hear that work is going on. And also curious if you can find other ways to like bake this into, I'll think of an example, like I heard on, the news, like lentils, like what is a protein was going to change to include more plant-based proteins. That seems to have fallen by the wayside, but that's like another, tool around like greenhouse gas and healthy diet. What's in a school lunch, like what's the nutritional value of that? So do you have any other work, I guess, in the pipeline? So procurement, amazing. But then also any other work in the pipeline around like standards that, I don't know, like it's hard at county level, state level, or just like any work in that space around like nutritional standards that we could use to move this agenda forward?
I'm relying on fellow departments to work on that, but there is a motion that Supervisor Horvath brought on gearing toward more plant-based proteins, and that's underway. So I've been partnering with the Chief Sustainability Office, who's working with the Department of Public Health, Michelle Wood, on that program.
Yeah,
And
not
that,
to like push a diet type, but just like to have an option to, like, you know what I mean, to broaden it. Sorry, continue.
well, and that is something that the schools were moving toward, LAUSD was moving toward. The challenge is the market-based system and the reimbursement rates that the schools get, which are so low. So it tends to push them into the USD commodity marketplace. So a while ago, before I had this job, we did get $100 million in the state budget for an incentive for schools to buy more local, environmentally sustainable, plant-based food. So they need that extra increment of funding. So we got that, and that's being spent as we speak. So we'll have the outcomes from that in an analysis at the end of the year. But we probably need more of that. So I'd say it's shifting subsidies, basically. Yes.
I'm so excited to hear about the combination of the two, because I work at a community college, and one half of community college students in California is food and housing insecure. They're also, many of them are parents. So as we look at that as an initiative, we're beginning to build housing. In my college, we got a bond and we're going to start to build, but we haven't started yet. So I'm going to bring this forward, this idea, to our board, because it's a phenomenal way. We have a child care center as well, and it's going to be on campus. So to get our students involved, not only just those students that were housing insecure, but also children that are at our center and other disciplines as well, perhaps nursing and that. So it's a phenomenally wonderful idea, and I will pass it forward. Thank you.
Good.
Jacqueline?
I'm going back to the one about bringing together schools, cities, county, continue the list of entities that are important to this, and just having done a lot of work over a lot of years in LA, as many of us have, we know that having the top of the school district say we're going to do something does not mean that it gets done at the local level, and you say that about every other entity too. I won't say it about Head Start with due honor to Luis, but we all know that LA is one of the very hardest places because it was constructed to keep things separate. Right? So I'm not saying anything I know you don't know, but the lessons that you learn along the way, I think will be really interesting. And certainly, I hope one of those lessons being that when community drives, as you know, when it's bottom up more than top down, you hopefully get better results. But it's
such a good point.
Very exciting to hear what you're doing, but I will be interested in what you learn about actually.
I look forward to reporting back at some point. I will say that, as you said that, what came to mind for me is that LA also has a wealth of community-based organizations.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so if we can kind of harness that
And
power
a lot of them
too.
are doing good food work.
Right, and also provide, the accountability and the advocacy.
Yeah.
So, having all that cohere around a vision, I think, is going to be really helpful. Crossing.
Commissioner
Go
Bautista,
ahead.
and then I think, go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say that despite what one may think about HHS Secretary RFK Jr., Office of Head Start just awarded more than $60 million to support nutrition and healthy eating habits across the country. And there is a full-throated support to continue to do that in years to come. So I think it's a good time to lean into that. That's a priority, so I think that aligns quite well with what we're talking about here.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
That was excellent. You did.
Thank you.
You did so well with that, and you did go through it pretty fast. So I'd love to hear a longer version of your presentation. How are we addressing the real difference in equities in need across LA County? I'm looking at Palmdale, Antelope Valley. Every time I'm in a group meeting, I hear this compelling plea to please, help us in this area that isn't blighted, but it is, so unfairly isolated and needy of everything you're talking about. So are we able to focus a little bit? How are we evaluating level of need and allocation of resources or energy?
That's such an important point. Thank you for raising it. And I am very interested in seeing what we can do in that area. And I don't want to get too far ahead of possibility, but I will say that I'm aware that the Tataviam Band tribe is there, and they have a lot of land that they're interested in. I don't want to speak for them, but there's a lot of opportunity there for conversation, so it's an avenue that I'm exploring. But I think also this probably leads into what Tori might speak about too, because what's the greatest potential in that area is that it has land with the potential for growing food. That's how I see that. But then also these procurement ideas might also be able to reach there with, I don't want to rule out the possibility of having mobile markets and other types of opportunity to reach communities of need.
Thank you. Tori, are you ready? Can you, your last name?
Yes, hi. Hi, yes, good afternoon. My name is Tori Chair, like what you sit on, and it is Norwegian. It actually means ugly female troll. So, yes, poetry. So anyways, I'm here to talk about parks and partnerships with First 5 LA, and well, let me just back up. Tori Chair, Executive Director, LA Neighborhood Land Trust. Thank you so much for having me here this afternoon. I've been in the parks space for quite a long time and have worked with First 5 for most of that. And so just have so much gratitude for First 5's presence and kind of dedication to parks and open space and understanding of the kind of beneficial impacts that open spaces, green spaces, gardens have on communities around LA County, especially young children and their families. So I'm going to talk, I'm not really going to talk about the nuts and bolts of parks. What I'm going to talk about is kind of how First 5 investments have really helped us leverage and bring resources and work towards change. I will start by saying the LA Neighborhood Land Trust, I'm just curious, has anyone heard of us? A few folks? Okay. Anyways, we are a small but mighty nonprofit. We were formed by Councilmember Garcetti back almost 25 years ago, and a number of other electeds within the city of Los Angeles to help address significant park inequities in the city of LA and make sure that every child could walk to a park. And we started in kind of the central part of Los Angeles and have spread now countywide. We have continued the effort and the vision, I think pretty much very closely to the kind of first track where we were founded, which is we do everything we can in our power to plan, design, build, advocate for, take care of, work with communities to make sure that there are parks and gardens and open spaces as communities want them in their communities. And so we are also a land trust, so we own and operate 14 community gardens and parks, and we do a lot of grant writing and other work to actually fundraise and bring in the resources to make sure that we can build the vision that the community wants. We own property, we buy property, kind of anything you can think of, we do it. That's the benefit of being small, is that we are very nimble and flexible. We just bought a new property in Koreatown for the city of Los Angeles. They couldn't get their agreements in place and negotiate fast enough, so we did all the negotiating. We actually own the property now, and eventually they will get it and take it back from us and reimburse us. So we are flexible, creative, and we don't take no for an answer. And so we are a good partner for the public agencies like LAUSD, cities, county, folks that want to work toward change but kind of struggle with it. So that's kind of our background on who we are. And I know I can actually forward slides myself, I think. Okay, here we go. So I just want to talk about, let's see, I'm going to take my glasses off so I can read my notes. Just talk about how First 5 has supported parks and green space work in Los Angeles County. And again, this is really so crucial to the LA Neighborhood Land Trust and all of the other community-based organizations that are doing work in parks, open space, gardens, school greening, all of it. We need partnerships like this to really move the needle. And so First Five started back with the TOTS Parks and Trails program. That was almost 15 years ago, I think, maybe 12 years ago. We actually used funding, very small amounts of funding in the terms of, like in construction terms, maybe 50,000, 100,000, but we're able to leverage those grants to pull in $1 million or $500,000. So actually use that money to build real projects. The next other programs that are on here are the BPAF, which I think many of you know, but was more policy focused. The LINK program, which the Land Trust has been a very grateful partner in that process since COVID. Actually, 2020 was when we started. We're still working and we're still partners, and I'm going to talk about it in a little bit. The more recent EC path, and then there's kind of more collaboration and opportunities. And I think that First Five is at the table ready to kind of start and collaborate. And one of the places that I think kind of fits in that and more category is your Best Start work. And the Best Start work, when I was back at the Trust for Public Land, actually one of my favorite projects is Zamora Park, which is in El Monte. And the Best Start kind of collaborative there, actually, the community organized themselves. They did park inventories. They put together a whole needs statement for why Zamora Park needed to be renovated. And when that landed on my desk, Kaiser sent it to us. I was like, well, of course we have to work on this. Absolutely, 100%, we need to support this work. So all of that base building that the Best Start community did really helped to kind of work towards that change. Now, Zamora Park, I think, is almost renovated. I think construction has started, and so millions of dollars have been raised, and the community will have a new park, and it's really thanks to that type of organizing. So you all have a presence in the policy, the built environment, the kind of community organizing, the interfacing, being an intermediary, and also just kind of building that community support. So these are all the pieces we need in place to make sure that we are moving the needle towards change here in LA County around parks and green space. Actually, one note on that I just want to make sure you see is that the investments that you have made have leveraged millions of dollars and helped raise millions of dollars. So just for the Land Trust alone, we've raised over $10 million in public funding that will go to support and actually implement these projects. So again, it doesn't take a lot, but it does take, for instance, support of staff time, and kind of your support of the Land Trust time through the LINK project has helped to create these projects. So the improvements to the built environment, I think we all know LA County has significant gaps in terms of park access. We know that the communities that are most impacted by park access mirror the food kind of access maps. It's central LA, South LA, San Fernando Valley, some in the San Gabriel Valley, Antelope Valley. We know that it's based on long history of kind of racist planning practices that have led us to a place where we're at now and are trying to kind of backpedal and get things kind of equalized. There's a lot of work ahead of us. This is going to take billions of dollars. This is going to take a long time, but we feel the urgency and are very committed to it. So as we're thinking about it, we're looking at really starting to build projects like the LINK project, which was a key project of First Five, where community organizing groups came together, Communities for a Better Environment that are doing environmental justice work, the LA Neighborhood Land Trust, a park developer, and small cities, City of Maywood and City of Cudahy. These cities don't have the bandwidth themselves to build high-quality parks that are a direct reflection of the community and that involve that type of engagement and organizing. So together, we've been in a partnership for the past 5 years, working on Maywood Riverfront Park, which is a renovation of a 7-acre park in the City of Maywood that was designed by the city not that long ago, 15, 20 years ago, but it wasn't designed in a way that was really meeting the needs of the community. And so it's not getting used in a way that's ultimately meeting the needs of the community. So we have been in a 4-year planning process coming up with a vision for this park that will include wide range of active play, more passive play, water play, basketball, passive grassy areas for picnics and for community events, exercise equipment for adults, kind of fitting it all together so that it really becomes a vibrant community space that the community will use and cherish and love and take care of. And the city is fully on board, but again, they need this kind of extra support. And so the LINK project that First Five was a partner in has really helped to move this needle. Maywood Riverfront Park, we have raised, the budget for the renovation is almost 10 million. We've raised, I think, about 8 million. We're looking to raise the last $2 million. This is all public money that we're writing grants for. And we will be starting construction hopefully within the next 6 months and have a renovated park in about 18 months. Same thing in Cudahy. So I'm not gonna, I know we're getting short on time, so I won't go into all of the kind of the benefits, but I think what I will say is that this funding is helping to build muscle for cities to kind of understand why it's important to build high-quality parks, why it's important to actually engage communities, and also kind of these non-traditional partnerships where cities are partnering with nonprofits to actually renovate their parks. So this is Maywood and Cudahy, just kind of a quick kind of summary. I'm not going to, actually, I can skip this one. I'll just show you this quick slide, which is, this is a concept plan for Maywood Riverfront Park on the right, and then the left is some of the community engagement we did around the park that was very arts-based, so it included actually dancing and natural dyes and all of these, like a wish tree and all of these fun interactive arts activities, because we were able to pull in other partners and really kind of expand kind of the collaboration among a wide number of groups. If you haven't been to Maywood Riverfront Park, I recommend you get out there and see it. And if you don't know, Maywood is the densest city west of the Mississippi. It has a long history of environmental justice issues, and the park is actually built on a former Superfund site that is still undergoing remediation, which creates all sorts of issues around kind of renovating it, but we are working our way through it. So I'll just wrap up. I think I have 2 more slides. So just want to emphasize that First Five LA is in a really unique position to continue to support this work. We are very grateful. I know I've said that a few times, but I really mean it. And I think your Vibrant Communities plan kind of creates a beautiful place for parks, for open space, and for creative kind of investments to make sure that communities have some of that seed funding that's necessary. It's really just paying for our time so that we can actually put in that 5 to 8 years that it takes to really do a high-quality engagement process. Not all of our projects take 5 to 8 years, but some of them where they're more complicated too. So I would just say parks are critical infrastructure, and these are all of the ways that we have seen kind of First Five LA support parks and are excited to kind of continue the conversation for kind of potential future collaborations. Around policies, thinking about kind of expanding and supporting partnerships, your strategic niche and helping to uplift and really emphasize the 0 to 5 and the importance of making sure that we're really focusing on 0 to 5. And then just knowing that parks overall have significant benefit in creating community, exercise, mental health, just kind of the whole, there's so many ways that they benefit. I could keep going on for a long time. So as we think about kind of the future of kind of parks and priorities, this is where we're at. The Land Trust is continuing to look for and identify new opportunities to expand this LINK model. We're actually going to be applying for a Measure A grant with Communities for a Better Environment, who was part of the original LINK Collaborative, expanding to other Southeast LA cities together, because we love partnering with them and have had such a great kind of time doing it and see the real value in the work. We are also looking to secure consistent funding for parks in the city of Los Angeles, and I've been working for a couple years on that. At the city of LA, through the park needs assessment, we are very clear that they do not have the funding to maintain and and kind of manage and upgrade the parks facilities as they are. And then we're also looking and putting a lot of resources into school greening. So I think that school greening is another place where someone was talking about the challenges of working with school districts. And I think it's a place where nonprofits can really lend kind of that edge. We don't take no for an answer, and we continue to push and are making real change, oftentimes in kind of these pointless, small, little bureaucratic kind of hangups that happen. So I'll just wrap up by saying thank you so much, and happy to be here as a resource as you're thinking about your Vibrant Communities work.
Thank you so much, panel. That was so insightful. Any questions, commissioners? Esther?
Number one, I think that Norwegians are chronic planters because we don't have very much land in Norway to grow stuff on, so we grow it in small plots where between the rocks. Having said that, all my family's there, so I do know that. Would love to see parks everywhere. I mean, I've made parks around the hospital where I work, and I've got parks. I'm building another one now that I'm in Central Juvenile Hall. I was cutting a contract to go in and renovate a building in Central Juvenile Hall, and I plan to put a park in there.
Amazing.
Yeah, and among other things. The one thing that really stymies me in terms of the parks in LA are the homeless. Okay, because it creates a sort of a fertile ground to set up a tent or whatever. And so I met with our city council members this last week about putting in really, really bright lights. You know how there was a movement about 10 years ago called City Lights, in which we were looking at the evening hours, is making sure that we had a lot of lights. And it was certainly about athletics and stuff. But my personal thing is, as we plan parks, that we put in really strong lights that come on at night. Maybe solar would be great in the world of being attentive to those kinds of things. And I think that we put them up in our parking lot. That doesn't belong to me, it belongs to the county. But anyway, put them up to try to discourage drugs and prostitution, actually. And we're successful in doing that. So it's just the facts, that if you're going to keep the parks, then you need to make sure they don't turn into campgrounds. That's my thought.
Yes, and it is very complicated, it's complicated. I would say the Land Trust, we operate 7 parks, actually now 8. 3 of them we own, the rest of them are City of LA parks that we have a 99-year lease for. We just took a new one on Broadway and like 51st or so, where the playground got burned down. So we hire community members to open and close the parks, and do light maintenance and kind of be the eyes and the ears and the community builders. And then we run robust programs in the parks, everything from mental health to nutrition to cooking. We just ran some cooking classes along with a food giveaway, to library, to really anything. Anyone comes to us with an idea, we are excited to think about it. And we really truly don't have issues with any encampments or really the parks are very cherished community spaces. And so I think it's an issue that we talk about in terms of kind of the need for real stewardship. And I think what we're seeing in city parks right now is the fact that the City of LA is really literally holding together their parks with duct tape and baling wire and not enough resources. And so we feel that that's one of the reasons why we need to make sure we have enough funding for the department, but then also thinking about non-traditional forms of stewardship so that parks can really get that care that they need and do become the community spaces. So they don't just magically become a vibrant community space. It really takes a little bit of, care.
Yeah, and good point. And I think in terms of talking about both food and parks, and that's why I really think like my first 5 has such a vibrant potential role to play, because I think it's changing the attitude of what people expect within their community and within their homes. And the people that bring home the new ideas are the kids. And the kids come home and say, why don't we have a garden Why don't we have a park? Why don't we have a library? You know, why don't we have Head Start? And the kids really drive it. You know, there was this, just in the attitude of whatever goes on in our country, there was an amazing series for 3 or 4 years on TV called The Man in High Castle. You remember that? And it was the idea that the Nazis won the war. And they ran the country, and so the western half was run by Japan, and the eastern half was run by Germany. And the idea, and the motto for that, I'm just trying to remember it, was it's the idea that those who own the future, if we're going to own the future, are those who will advocate for change, who become part of change, and that's our kids.
I do think the Best Start model, where communities are organizing amongst themselves and identifying priorities, is a really important part of this. And with Zamora Park, the community did an inventory. I saw the slideshow, and there were issues with drug deals happening in Zamora Park. There were a number of issues, but it really was a beautiful. There were 20,000 people living within a half mile of that park, but people weren't using the park. And I think that the power is how First Five invested in basically community members organizing and identifying their own priorities. And from there, change is happening. And so I do think we look at parks as organizing opportunities, as organizing spaces, but they do need some extra support and infrastructure. We can't just let a park be, you have to give it some supervision.
The end. So we, in public health, just along those lines, you have to make it usable, and that's a community, we have to listen and figure out why isn't it being used. And so we have, I'm in our department, we have our Office of Violence Prevention, and so we do a lot of work, maybe in county parks on safe, we call it safe passages, which is people don't feel safe, walking to school or walking to work, or you're taking a walk for exercise, whatever, using the park. We've partnered with community-based organizations, more from a violence prevention lens, but around just there's people around all the time, so it feels safe. And there's certain times that the community has decided are off limits for those kinds of activities, and it's really, it also creates a safe space. Again, we're doing it from a violence prevention lens, with the same idea of community safety through community, led interventions, you know what I mean? So I think there's some success there, and I'd love to connect you with, those types of programs in your parks too.
Any further comments? Ms. Bo? No?
Confirming we don't have any public comments. My
Thank you.
apologies, we were having some technical issues that we were trying to resolve.
No problem. All right, we're almost ready to adjourn. Let me tell you that before we adjourn today, there's a reminder. Let's go celebrate John Wagner, and hopefully he'll talk to us again. But thank you so much, John, for everything you've done, and thank you. That was a wonderful presentation, very enlightening. Thank you.
And Commissioner Sagala, I just wanted to take a moment and just hand it back to staff to see if they had some final questions on your slide. Did you want to address those?
We had one more question for all the commissioners, which is on this slide. Just hearing reflecting on the presentation, the equity index of priorities, and the presentations of our guest speakers. Wanting to ask all of you commissioners what success from your perspective would look like for 2028, and really thinking about our role in shaping. There's, again, our first goal around meeting basic need, and then this goal around getting children, to have nurturing relationships and vibrant environments, and thinking about the long-term work. So if we have a few minutes, but I know that we are ready to celebrate John as well. So
We have a few minutes.
yeah. So I want to be flexible.
Go ahead, Jacqueline.
Just briefly, you've already touched on it, the Best Start work for sure, but also there's been something for the last 5 years called Thriving Families, Safer Children. It's communities organizing themselves when they pick their own priorities, and not surprisingly, when they pick their own priorities, it generally includes food, and places to play, particularly, when there are children involved. And I just hope that some of our metrics could be about community ownership, community trust, community, just like people continuing, continuing to feel that this is theirs, right? Because that's how you continue.
Absolutely. I had written community ownership when Tori was giving the example of the community engagement, right? The community engagement, the community deciding what the priorities were. I'm familiar with a park that you developed in South Los Angeles where the community said we can't have a restroom because it's a pocket park, which means we all can, go back to our homes to use it, but safety for our families, for our children to be in the park means that in this park, we cannot have a restroom. And that was what the neighborhood asked for, and that park is bustling. There are families there every day, all weekends, and it has to do with community ownership. So absolutely, made a note.
I think I agree with that. I think what we need to do is, First Fire, and I've said this ever since I joined this board, is that we need to live up to the expectations of the community, rather than asking them to live up to our expectations. I think clearly why I'm so focused on school-based stuff and have where the kids are, because I think kids are a lot kinder and nicer than a lot of adults.
I just wanted to add that.
Go ahead, Luis.
No one's going to argue against a park, obviously, right? And the more the better. But I'd love to see that every childcare center, every family childcare home has at least some kind of dedicated garden space or, a community garden type of concept integrated into it so that children, right, can really see that day in, day out, right? It's great to go to the neighborhood park, but, I spend most of my time maybe, at the family childcare home, right? Or at the daycare center. So what is the exposure that I can have there? And I think thinking about what that means, right? Some of these spaces are rather limited, right? There's just concrete everywhere. So then how do we bring in that concept, right, of garden and or, open space in a way that's affordable, that can be easily maintained, right? And that allows both the adults and children to sort of interact with it on a daily basis.
I would love for you to come to our Unidad Park and Garden.
Okay.
In historic Filipino town that has a bustling park, although it's a little quieter right now, but typically bustling, and a spectacular little community garden where you feel like you have left the city, even though you can see downtown LA. So,
Let me know.
yes, come on out. Yeah.
Can I make a comment on the nutrition
Yes,
piece
please.
really quick? Just, I guess for a question I have for First Five LA's role is, there are a lot of nutrition benefits theoretically available for 0 to 5-year-olds and their families, but are now much more complex to access. So I feel like there needs to be some piece of this that's if you are eligible, do not be afraid, sign up, because, and there's gonna be a higher threshold now to forget it. And so we're talking, for example, SNAP also funds what's called SNAP Ed, a program that is zeroed out in the current budget, which we have at Public Health, which historically has done community-based organization partnership to expand on SNAP, use it better, double value of your dollars at a farmer's market. That is gone. So we're thinking to reframe well, isn't this still needed to say here's how to get, okay, the whole landscape has changed. What is a work requirement? What does that mean? How can you check that box and get what you need for your family? So that's the inside sort of strategy. I think we've heard a lot about there's going to need to be workarounds. So I guess what I would like to see from First Five is yes, for people who are no longer availing themselves of what's available as a public benefit, yes, let's work in that. But then also, how are we maximizing what's still available? And families who may be fearful, but may be eligible actually with that. You know what I mean? There's a lot of confusion.
I appreciate you bringing this up, Commissioner Batra, because the regional network grantees through the 14 Best Start communities, they agreed to do a deeper dive together on housing and increasing access to all of the safety net programs, prioritizing food, of course. And culturally affirming EC services, and so early care education services. So they're going to be looking at that, and for us, we're particularly looking at yes, what is working to address the barriers that are, where families are eligible and qualify. So how do we make sure that that information is shared across the 5 regions? And then secondly, what are the technology uses that some entities are using but others are not, like Navigator toolkits, right? To make sure that it's accessible across the different regions. So we hope to be able to report on that work that is taking place now for the 5 regions and 14 best art communities. But that priority came from them. And so you're right that now it's even more critical, and the correct information, right? Because now it's having to retrain everyone and to stay up to date. And so we are looking at what it means for us to have briefings where we're able to support with information that is accurate and timely for the grantees.
If I can just add to that, also, separate admissions processes for separate food programs doesn't help anybody. And it doesn't help the data at the far end either. And that, there's a systems piece of it that, I don't know any of this is low-hanging fruit, but it does feel like that's one where at least you could figure out who you bring to the table to say, how could we make this work more effectively?
Any further questions? All right, again, I'm going to invite you to the farewell party, the tracks on the patio for John, and we're looking forward to seeing everyone. Thank you for your insights and your thoughts and your reflections. They're always profound. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. And just one last item for the record before we adjourn today's meeting. For item 9, I did want to confirm that there are no general public comments for today's agenda. Thank you so much. We'll see you at Tracks.
Shout out to CAC of Brains.